is now, and that which is to be has already been, and God requires that which is past. In English, what goes around comes around. In other words, everything works in a circle, and we're coming full circle again. And what we're seeing is the government of Antichrist, the foundation being laid. And is it going to happen next week, next year? No, but I mean, it can't right now because I mean we're not far enough along into this, but it's being laid out to get people used to this idea. See, this new Green Deal would stop. In 10 years, your car would be outlawed. Nothing on gas. There would be no air travel, except for the government. Right. You couldn't drive a car. That's just like Al Gore. You know, he flew all over the country, all over the world in his jet plane, and he said folks are going to quit driving their SUV because it's leaving too big a carbon footprint. And he was making more of a carbon footprint in a week than most cities did in a year, you know, which goes to show he didn't believe what he's preaching, but it was making him rich. That's right. You know, if I thought driving my car was going to kill the whole place in a year, I'd park my car. They don't believe what they preach; they're just trying to make the common folks believe it. And that's just like this fiasco about man-made global warming. I don't know anything about weather. Do y'all? I know this. The pattern has changed since I was a kid. You get hot summers and you get summers not so hot. You get wet summers and dry summers. The weather patterns are always changing. And see, to think, hey, the globe, folks, is a pretty good sized place. And to think, to put all the pressure on America to go green is going to stop anything, it's worse than ludicrous. Because, do you think China's going to go along with all that? Or Russia? No, but see, in the end, it will come down to that they will, because if you get enough folks scared that hey, we're going to destroy everything, then you can talk to them, and that's what all this is about. But you know, the Bible is a book. It not only tells us how to live here, but it's our newspaper, and it's full of what we call types and shadows. You know, Paul told the Colossians that the Jewish feast was shadows of things to come, but the body was Christ. In other words, the Jewish feast was real feast at that time, but he's saying their real meaning is all settled in Christ. It was not just a feast. God gave that feast, but the real meaning was settled in Christ. So we see types and shadows and things that are happening over and over and over and over. And if you want to know what is coming under the Antichrist government, look over Genesis 48. Joseph had been sold down into Egypt and rose to the very height of the Egyptian government. And Joseph, there was a famine down in Egypt, and Israel had come into Egypt because there was a famine over the Promised Land too. And God raised up Joseph to save his people. But you don't think the devil took notice of what was happening? He took exact notice of what's happening, and he said, hey, that works. And what Joseph did in Egypt is exactly what we're going to see coming around. It's going to be in this last global government. And you need to look at the details of what happened. Remember this: Joseph was not an Egyptian. Joseph was a foreigner that they put ahead of the Egyptian governor. Joseph was a Jew, so he didn't have any attachments really to Egypt. He was sold into Egypt, but he became ruler, and there was a famine coming, and God gave Joseph the idea to how to save his people. But like I said, the devil took notice, and look, we'll start at verse 15. Now you remember when Ron Emanuel said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." See, it takes a crisis to get everybody's attention and to get everybody starting agreeing with stuff. It takes a crisis. And the crisis that is being generated right now is this global warming fiasco. If the whole world is going to end in 10 to 12 years unless we do something, guess what? If you get enough folks scared, they'll start moving into whatever you say to try to save themselves and the planet. Let's save the planet. And so the crisis that we've got coming right now is a manufactured crisis, but there's method in this madness, folks. But look at verse 15 of 47. 47. Genesis 47. Why did I say 48? Yeah. Y'all don't pay attention to me. Keep up with me now. One of these days, this brain's going to get back right. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth." In other words, now the money's not any good. And Joseph has gathered up all he can gather up. And so their money's failing. Now here's the crisis. They're in famine and the money's failing. And Joseph, as head of the government, has got everything already gathered up. And Joseph said, "Give me your cattle and I will give you for your cattle if money fail." And they brought the cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks, and for the cattle and for the herds and for the asses, and fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. Here it is. Joseph has took control of the industry. The cattle industry was, that's how they lived, folks. Now the government took control of the industry. The government's got control of all the money. And when the year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, "We will not hide it from my Lord how that our money is spent. My Lord also has our herds of cattle. And there is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate." You see that? He said, "Hey, we're willing to become slaves to you if you take care of us." Now Joseph has got the industry. Joseph has got the money. Now Joseph has got the land. Joseph has got the seed. And Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field because of the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of the borders of Egypt unto the other end, therefore. In other words, wherever the government decided the people need to be working, that's where the government moved them. Because the government's got control of everything. See, this new Green Deal is not new, folks. It's old, but it's just being redone. Only the land of the priest, now check all this that was happening. Only the land of the priest brought he not, for the priest had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Now see, Joseph taking care of the priest. Man is a spiritual being, folks. He always has been. And so the government took care of this priest, so the priest could keep the people in line for the government's need. See, it was not the priest was not preaching, hey, anything about God. It was preaching, hey, line up with the government. This is the way we're going to survive. And you'll see the exact same thing in Revelation when we go over and look and see what the government of Antichrist, what he's doing. "Behold, I have," Joseph said, 23, "Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have brought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow in the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that you shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, the seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for food for your little ones." But you see, the government gave them the seed. They didn't have land, they didn't have cattle, they didn't have horses, they didn't have seed. It's exactly the same thing Agenda 21 brought forth. It's the same thing as the New Green Deal is suggesting for the future. Like I say, they know it's not going to work right now. They know it's not. They know it's not going anywhere right now. But hey, it's going, folks. We don't need to overlook this thing. They're getting folks used to this because it is coming. When the money fails, that was the era. That was the crisis then. But now the crisis is the global warming. But hey, we stand to change to the money failing too, folks. Like I said, we're just gonna print more money. Yeah, you just keep printing money, but after a while, folks, somebody's got to pay the fiddler. But you see the whole pattern of the New Green Deal laid out in Genesis 47. There was a famine in Egypt. There was a famine in Canaan. And Joseph begin to operate and to work to save God's people then, except in this end time it will be the government of the Antichrist controlling everything that under him, you know. One world government. That's what it's pushing for. Like I said, 176 nations signed on to implement Agenda 21 when that resolution passed in the UN here a few years ago. We talked about it when it passed. Agenda 21, and they said by the end of the 21st century, they wanted this thing in full force. That's the reason they called it 21. By the end of this century, they wanted everything in full force. So they got to be rolling it out. And you know, they're already trying it in places, this, what they call guaranteed wage. They've tried it in little cities. I saw the other day where they was trying some of it in Sweden, where the government was just going to send you a check. It's a guaranteed wage. You ain't got to do nothing, they send it to you. But they're taxing folks that is successful, that is working, to give to those that won't. Yeah. And after a while, you know, in any case like that, after a while you run out of other people's money, and there's where the trouble starts. Oh yeah, everything has to go to the government. Yeah. It's like I said, you know, under Obama, y'all remember when the EPA said it was against the law to even catch rainwater. So they were in charge of the water. Yeah. Can't even catch rainwater. And so and still under this thing, the government owns all the water. Folks, if the government's got the water and the government's got the land and the government's got the seed, what you gonna do? You'll line up for a 666 one day, unless you know who your supplier is. But let's run over to Revelations, and we'll bring it on down to where we're at right now, here and now. Revelation 6, I believe it is. If it ain't 6, y'all let me know. In Revelation 6, we start seeing the judgment seals opened in the end time. And John saw these symbolic, and it is symbolic, horses come forth. And the first one he saw come forth was representing the Antichrist. And verse 2 says this, and I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Now this is the judgment seals being opened. And Daniel talks about the Antichrist, and he said, by peace he shall destroy many. So the Antichrist will come as a man of peace. And he will come promising the people peace and prosperity in their time, folks. He'll come at a bad time, and he'll be the answer. And folks are praying for the Antichrist right now to come. They don't know that that's what they're praying for, but they pray, give us a man that will promise us peace and prosperity in our time, and we'll follow him though he be the devil. And he's coming, folks. And the foundation is being laid. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. Red symbolizes war. Under the Antichrist, he comes in as a man of peace. But guess what? There ain't going to be any peace until the Prince of Peace gets back. Because in man's heart is always the need to be powerful and have power over other people. And so you see war break out. And then in that fifth one, you see famine start happening. Look at this. When he had opened the seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Everybody know what balances are? And I heard a voice in the midst of the beast saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see that I hurt not the oil and wine. What we see here is the government measuring out to the people. Everybody's got whatever portion the government says you should have. The government is giving bread. And the oil and wine represents the rich, the riches. He said, don't touch that upper class. The oil and wine, don't touch them. Say that you hurt not the oil and wine. So, and that's the same way it is in socialism. The government people gets rich, and the people underneath them is begging for bread. But he said he had a balance, and so he's giving the people exactly what the government says they need. But don't hurt the oil and the wine. And you know, and I saw where a fellow had run this down. See, in those days when this was written, a penny was a day's wages. Yeah. So a fellow said that, I was reading a little article and it said it would be kind of comparison to this. a day's wages for a loaf of bread. That's what it'd be comparing to. But the government be giving it to you because, hey, everything is controlled by the government or the Antichrist. And through this, and like I say, it comes in a time of crisis, folks. And how many can knows that this crisis is building? Like I said a while ago, this global warming, man-made global warming is a built-up thing, but Iran is threatening to blow Israel off the map over there. The Middle East is a powder keg, and folks, in this country, all these bad storms and stuff happening, it's going to bust the insurance companies sooner or later. And so we're gonna have crisis. Matter of fact, we're living right now in the best time we're going to live in here till Jesus gets back. Now, and this is what we're seeing again: the Antichrist set up, and he's going to set up a government where the government owns everything, and will divide among the people. It's not just in America, folks. That's the reason 176 nations have signed into this new Green Deal, which was Agenda 21 they signed, because they understand that. Look, we got all these nuclear weapons. We got all these chemical weapons. You know, if everything was just unleashed, it would kill everybody on our planet several times over. And people begins to understand that. And so when we got somebody coming along with a new deal, hey, they'll listen. And the greater the crisis grows, the more they will listen, folks. And free is a good word to folks. When the government says, hey, we'll take care of you, you just listen to what we tell you, do what we tell you, and we'll take care of you. You ain't got to worry about your light bill. We'll pay your light bill. You ain't got to worry about your groceries. We're going to give you groceries. We're going to give you a place to live. But just like in the time of Joseph, you're going to be sold out completely to a government that is going to control your every move. They control, under the new Green Deal, they're going to control what you eat. Meat's off the table, folks. There ain't going to be any meat. Again, under the Antichrist, he'll start off as a man of peace, and it will look good for a little while. Because until you spend all the people's wealth that they've made, you can do things that looks good for just a little while, but then it all runs out, and you've got nothing, absolutely nothing. And so the Antichrist will come, and the Bible said he would set himself in the temple, showing himself that he is God. What does that mean? Well, it's showing itself that he is all-powerful, that he can do for you better than you can do for yourself. And the Islamic people are looking for Antichrist. They say he's their 12th almond. He's their promise. And he's going to come and break the cross and bring everybody in under Islam. And Daniel said that he'd be a man that had no desire for women. What does that tell you? And that he would not regard the God of his fathers. That's a Jewish statement, the God of his fathers, because the Gentiles folks always had a different bunch of gods, you know. And we see in verse 8 of Revelation 6 the end result of this Antichrist government. I looked and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given to them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger and with death and with the beast of the earth. The whole earth will begin to rebel against this thing. And look, you don't want to be here after the first load's gone. When that trumpet sounds, go with that, because it's going to get rough. But see, what folks don't understand is this thing don't just happen overnight. It's been building for years. But now we're seeing it come into place just like pieces of a puzzle coming together. And we, like I say, we look at these things like this Cortez, and we say, how stupid is that? And it is stupid. There's no logic to it. But folks, it's eating it up like sugar, folks, and it's coming. It will come. It will come to be the ruler of the land. We are one president away from not having somebody in our government pushing this thing to the hilt. One away. And you ever wonder why, with the economy like it is, and our military built up, and all the things that's happening good in this country, why so many folks hate Trump? It's because this spirit right here says, hey, he's against what we were trying to do. This spirit is kicking against it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't believe that if he makes it through the first term, I don't believe he'll be reelected. I believe when the election comes up, he will lose. Not fairly. But we got too many people in. We got judges and folks that count the vote. Hey, well, Karl Marx, he's one of the big leaders in communism. He said it wasn't the ones that voted that count, but the ones that counted the votes.
That's right.
And so we're in that place right now, folks. See, we got the law is just for certain people. Do you ever notice that? Some of Trump's folks lied to Congress, and now they're facing life in the pen. But Hillary lied outright, and they knew she lied and wasn't even charged. Ambassador now. And see, the Constitution is only as good as the people that enforce it. It don't matter what it says unless somebody enforces it. So that's just where we're coming to, folks. We're seeing this thing happening. And the things that we used to say is coming are here. So I think today where somebody said, hey, I'm no longer looking for the signs, I'm looking for the trumpet sound. But what we're seeing, and know this, ain't no use of panicking about it. The Bible has already saw this happening. And this is what we're seeing happening right before our eyes. But God ain't going to give up his throne, folks. As long as he's on the throne, everything's lovely with you if you know him. Now the world's going to get in a lot worse shape than what it's in right now. And see, it's a demonic spirit that's driving us. That's just like the murder of babies. Which now it's full-term babies, and that they're killing. And a lot of folks think it's going to end right there. That spirit will never be satisfied. Folks, it will move into to those that are sick. It'll move into the aged, people that are old. But see, folks are getting used to how they're killing babies. Ain't nobody in the street screaming and hollering, trying to put this down. But that spirit will never be satisfied. It's a demonic spirit, folks. Yeah, if you break an eagle egg, you get jail time. But any spirit that does not count human life sacred is of the devil, folks. It's of the devil. The devil's been trying to kill off man ever since, that Adam let him talk him into giving him his authority, his power. Because man is in Satan's place in his mind. And the Antichrist will be to the devil exactly what Jesus is to God. He will work everything the devil has tried to do for years. And, he'll be a man in Satan's place. Jesus was a man, but he was God. This guy will be a man, but he'll be 100% devil. But he will promise good things. He'll promise, hey, we're going to take care of you. But it's like I said a while ago, you got to, your whole life has got to be in the government's hands. And the only way this thing will ever come to pass in America, and it's coming to pass, first they're going to have to disarm its citizens. They're going to have to. And it's coming. I mean, it's too many guns now. They'll fight back. That's the same way they did it with Hitler did with the Jews. When Hitler passed the gun control law and took up the guns, he said, the whole world will now follow our lead, and we'll have a peaceful society. They sure did. They killed 60 million Jews that was unable to fight back. Marched them into the gas chambers and killed them. And a lot of them that, when they first started off there, say that they got on those trains believing they was going to a better place, that Hitler was going to take care of them. He did. And I saw that little documentary I told you about here a while back, and it said a lot of those people, he'd send out the little brochures and stuff that was sick or deformed, come to the hospital. They was going to give them free health care. When they got to the hospital, they gave them a shot that killed them. Killed them. And they did it all in the name of the good of the people. But see, when you're promising the folks everything, you can't have people that can't contribute nothing. And the folks that's too old to work, or the folks that's too sick to work, hey, they're just a drag on that free government stuff. And so the government will be trying to take them out. But in all this, folks, remember one thing: God's mind hadn't changed, and God's power hadn't changed. Now we backed off from who God is. We have, folks. You might well just call it like it is. We backed off from who He is, but He ain't changed. He's waiting for His people to take a hold of what has always been ours. And old Paul said, "You're more than conquerors," and we can be. So all this stuff that we see, I don't want us to be terrified over it, but I want us to know what's happening, so that we won't be terrified over it, folks. It's a plan. There's a method in this madness. But the church, if you'll read Revelation now on the 7 churches, you'll find out that there's a church going out of here at the same time. There's a church going out, and again, just as Joseph gave the priest their land and gave the priest, protection, the Antichrist will have a religious system that's pointing him out as being good. The Bible calls him the false prophet. And there's a religious system building right now, folks, that will back him. Here a few weeks ago, we had some pastors from different denominations blessing abortion clinics. Did y'all see that? I think we talked about it in the news here. Went down and blessed the abortion clinics, pastors. So you're gonna have some of the religious folks that's gonna back this thing, and I guarantee you, there's more than you think right now that's clapping their hands over this new Green Deal, saying, "Bring it on!" Hey, it's a good thing to make sure our people is not hurting for anything, not realizing it is just a ticket into slavery. Everybody needs to read what happened there with Joseph, because it's following that same pattern. The devil learned something there. He learned something, and he's been pushing it ever since. You see, the devil tries to make counterfeit things out of what God does. And so he's going to have a false church. He's going to have a false leader that is going to back an Antichrist who will be portray himself as the Messiah. And see, so many folks are looking for the Antichrist, with horns and all this. No, he's going to look good to the world for a while, till the bottom drops out. But he cannot come into full power as long as the church is here, because I'm going to point him out as long as I'm alive. I've seen him. I see who he is. I see where he comes from. I see his characteristic. Do I know personally who he is? No. And I don't intend to know. I intend to be out of here. But he had his application in. And I guarantee you, he ain't canceled it yet. But see, that shows you how easily, though, folks can be swayed. We elected Obama twice. 4 years, and he tore the whole economy down. We turned around him and elected him again, and chiefly on the color of his skin. Right. See? You see how easy folks is swayed. And I tell you what always gets me. You'll see all the liberals talking about we're one country. We all need to get together. Then they'll turn around and talk about women's rights, Spanish rights, black rights. Hey, I thought under the law we all had the same rights. What law is it that we've got wrote that says, hey, it doesn't apply to you if you're black? Right. It doesn't apply to you if you're Spanish. What law on the book says that? There's folks that's highly prejudiced individuals, but that's got nothing to do with the law of the land. You can't negotiate how somebody feels. You can't, make that a law, how they feel. But our laws, there's no such thing as women's rights and homosexual rights. Under the law, everybody got the same right. But it keeps folks divided when we start talking about different people's rights. Divide and conquer, and that's exactly what's happening. And free speech is quickly being done away with. You have to, if you don't go along with what the propaganda that's coming out, hey, then you're a bigot and a racist. And the left uses that word racist as a cure-all. It's a gift that keeps on giving, regardless of what the argument is. If they can call somebody a racist, they'll usually back up and hush, because nobody wants to be a racist. But this, folks, if there's ever been a time when this nation needs God, it's now. If there's ever been a time when the church needs to invite God back into it and follow after Him closely, it's now.